the morning.
I have 7 o'clock, so I'm gonna call the meeting to order. So, first thing is, we need to do introductions, everybody knows everybody. Is anybody that
No,
doesn't
do
know
them anyway,
anybody?
because Bruce is new.
Bruce who?
The
He
guy.
knows us all. Do you need us to do introductions? Yeah. Peas and crows. Go ahead.
Barry Pearson, Wardsboro.
Rich Warner from Dover.
Dwight Borum, Wardsboro.
Carrie McDonald, Katie, Dover.
Laura Sibilia, Dover.
Bill Antone, Superintendent.
Mark Schauber, citizen
Of Dover.
of Dover.
Andy McLean, clerk.
I'm Lauren Harkwick from the Deerfield Valley News.
Lori Garland, Wyndham Central.
Anita Raphael, Wardsboro.
Matt Martin, principal of Dover School.
Peter Barrett, minutes.
You don't forget yourself. If we gotta do it, you gotta do it. Okay, additions and corrections to the agenda. Cool, I hear none. Members of the public? Nope. I have no correspondence, I have no communications. Communications. Anita was first on thank you, Bill. Anita was first, so Anita came to our last meeting to talk to us about doing the kind of work she did for us on the study committee. So Anita, people were supposed to come up with some specific tasks for
I
you,
have my
so
list.
you can work for an agreement. Did anybody have anything specific for Anita?
Let me review quickly. We needed to determine a point of contact rather than dealing with the whole group at once. I would deal with one person. Sites for distribution, where you want the information material to go, frequency, whether it's just at every meeting or stuff in between. Who's going to handle community outreach, replies to questions? I'm not in charge of answers. I need somebody in charge of answers. The kind of products that you want developed, whether it's just public service announcements, press releases, other websites, blogs, whatever. And again, a very simple statement of the primary and secondary purpose. And thanks for putting me first on the agenda. I'm in the Christmas play.
That's right.
And I left rehearsals just now to run over here to do it, and I gotta run back. So thank you.
So you sent this out to us, and I think we sent it out to everybody, and we were all
Yeah,
supposed-
everybody had a copy at the
Right.
last meeting.
So,
So once I know kind of what you have in mind for a framework of what you need, then I can really put together by tomorrow a little proposal and email it out to y'all, and you can have a chance to review it. It's literally 2 pages with a price on it. So I just can't really give you a figure of anything until I know the scope of work a little better. I don't think it has to be as ambitious as we did for the Act 46 committee, that involved voting and stuff at the end, which was pretty complicated to communicate. This doesn't necessarily have to be that. And as I expressed at the last meeting, my concern is overshadowing the existing school boards in both locations, and not making it sound like y'all are already running the schools when that's further down the line. And we also talked about that this would be temporary, just through the end of February, and then we'd revisit the issue after the next town meeting. So I'm good with that.
go ahead.
So, I mean, I think, in this effort, more of the materials that we might need would be around, FAQs, or, you know, as things are being developed, and there might be questions that are coming back, you know, being able to develop kind of, those FAQ sheets or something along those lines, for people to digest, or, you know, taking kind of materials that can shut the rumor mill down with, like, no, here's what's happening, here's the, you know, here are the individual pieces, as opposed to needing like press releases, here's what we're doing, or here's where we're going, or here's where the next meeting is, but, you know, here's the policy that the 2 boards have decided on, and here's what that means, and here's how that impacts kids, you know, which feels a little different than what we were doing before.
Before, it's getting more information just out and having a place where people could go.
Yeah.
And that's not, you're not feeling that's the same kind of push out.
No, it feels more like giving more detail, actually, on less things, but more detail.
Is that
I
kind of,
understand what she means, I
I
understand.
don't know if that's, if everybody agrees, but that's,
okay, well, from the board side, is people in agreement with that? Dwight, you were involved in the other committee.
Yeah, I get, I'm not 100% sure I understand, so maybe
You want more specific details
it's
listed.
just basically the
So-
more, in layman's terms, is it?
so so we've got some policies that we're gonna have to chew on that
Right,
they're just gonna be, they're gonna be changes.
right,
They'll make people, changes uncomfortable, makes people,
Right.
anxious. So just having materials developed that help us to explain, like, what is the policy based on? What does it mean?
Okay.
Something more than just the policy itself. I don't know if I'm.
yeah, I think that makes sense.
I think,
Like a
no,
primer
I think
for
a
the
meaning,
policy.
a meaning is kind of hard, because a meaning is more subjective than objective.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not sure
know,
if I'm
right.
using the right term.
Just how it impacts.
You don't want it
Right.
to be subjective. I mean, you have a policy, a policy should say what it's doing, but
I think you want to shed some light on the development of your policies so that once the officialdom of this board kicks in, it's not a surprise that it's been evidence of a discussion, evidence of a evolution of your policies prior to the actual implementation. So I
Right.
get what you're saying.
And that's more than just submitting the minutes from a meeting, it's more detail.
Right.
That's what I mean.
I mean,
That-
it's that next click down, for
Yeah.
further information about, how this came about. Here's an example, or here's another thing. I get that. But you still want me to do notices of meetings, posting of agendas, all the
That was
legwork
my
prior.
feeling, because you would have the social media
Yep, I can do
sites
all
and,
that.
and the press, right?
Yes, right. And that was again one of my questions. Last time we didn't do social media because we sort of all agreed that it involved minute by minute responses. And it could be a can of worms. I'm more than happy to do it, but as long as we're
Okay,
all
so
aware.
I may have spoke out of turn. So,
I
to me,
feel the same
social
way.
media is anything you do on one of these
Oh,
or
okay.
on one
Well,
of
to
your
me,
phones.
social
Yeah,
media
no.
is Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Well, then that's not me, no.
We're
Alright,
gonna steer away
so-
from
I
that,
don't twit
right?
or
it's
gram
not
or.
here at all.
Yeah.
So everybody's good about that, right? That
Nobody
was my,
twits.
not being up, that's my
Right.
flip phone coming out.
Yeah,
Alright.
right. MySpace,
MySpace.
yeah.
Does that still
What?
exist?
No, come on, Dwight.
Well, I mean, I don't, can we wait till February to talk about the social media? That's something we need now. I mean, obviously, people do get their information from social media other than Twitch here. So, as far as meeting dates and those kind of things.
Yeah.
No,
Can we
I'm-
limit it to just information?
Yeah,
But
I'm
that means-
happy to set up a
But
Facebook page.
maybe we can wait till February for that one, I don't know.
Oh, well, it's up to you folks. I mean, if you guys think social media is important, we could start it now. I mean,
Anita's right, that that's something that,
It's something that constantly needs updating all the
Yeah,
time.
I mean, it does.
And that's,
somebody's on, means we're
Yeah.
asking Anita to monitor that all the time.
I don't
would
think
expect-
so. I think we can put in there, we can be upfront that, there'll be no responses till after, the next board meeting. So social media is something going out, you're not gonna be able to give us something back.
But people
It's a
respond
one-way
to each
street.
other within that format. You don't have
Yeah.
control over
Right.
the person who posts the next post to the person above the post who posted something to another post.
Just like we have no control over the press, what they write about us.
Exactly,
I
exactly.
mean,
So
yeah.
that's my only hesitation, and it's
Well,
very
no, I mean, we,
challenging to go in and clean up those pages once people start posting, as you said, the rumor mill. And you don't wanna be the site for the rumor mill. That should be their personal pages and whatever.
Hey, the more discussion, the better. And then if there's discussion, maybe they'll show up for the meeting,
Yeah,
don't know.
I agree with you. I agree it's important, but I also wanna issue that little tiny warning that Facebook can be a cesspool.
wow, there's a quote for the
Wow.
week. How's-
So would we ask Anita to maintain a blog site for the new district? Because the blog site people can take that and post to their own social medias to prompt discussions, but
Right.
Anita is managing
Right,
the basis.
right.
So it's a one-way street.
It's a one-way street on the blog site.
Correct.
I think that's more what you were wanting to see.
Right.
and that's, I think we talked about that the last meeting too,
Okay.
just doing it
And
that way.
I
that
can
way
create
there's no-
links on the blog site that says if you wanna post this to your Facebook page, click here. and then it'll go automatically to their Facebook page.
You might wanna start with that, I would think.
Yeah, and then have
Okay,
links to like
so there
the
you go. We got
videos
that.
and-
Yeah,
And then we got the other things,
and you want the blog,
yeah, and then like going out to the Bucketville News and
yeah,
the Valley
distribution.
News and, but we're a little smaller group now.
Yeah, we only have to deal
We
with
don't have to
3
do,
towns.
right,
only.
2 towns.
We do not have to deal with 3 towns, only 2
Okay, I'm sorry,
towns.
yes.
Right, and, did Matt leave or is he still here?
Matt ran away,
Oh.
because he heard you turn your head.
One thing that would be helpful to me is to hear from the 2 principals of, and maybe teachers of what's valuable to them in terms of communicating with their student families. And I can certainly initiate that on my own with your permission to contact the 2 principals
Bill, is that okay?
It's fine with me.
Okay.
and,
So Bill, the principals work for the superintendent, so if
Right.
you get permission from Bill.
yeah,
Yes, direct communication with the people that are gonna be.
okay, because I
That's
did have
awesome.
communication with the principals on the other program and it was very effective. I could say, I'm sending you this, I'm sending you that, and
That'd be
that
great.
worked out really well.
Is there anything else with Anita? Do you have everything you need?
I have everything I need except my primary point of contact,
Will be me.
it'll be you again, and you'll answer
and Rick
all,
Thorpe is the vice chair, so.
he'll be the second, and
Yeah.
the community outreach, you'll answer questions, if questions come in, I direct to
Yeah,
you.
I don't, right, but again, I'm gonna answer questions after a board meeting.
Correct,
So I think we should just note that, you know, you're not gonna get in, this is not a place to get an instant response.
right.
It's not gonna, we're not gonna engage in a debate whether or not, you know, there should be 2 buses or 3 buses or anything
Correct.
like that.
and we agree that the primary purpose is to provide access to information in a timely basis, or whatever the legalese term is, and that we're not really about voting or anything. And the secondary purpose is to encourage participation.
If people wanna participate. I mean, the other thing is, people may be so happy with what's going on that they're not gonna be there. I was once told by a very wise voter in Dover that when we don't show up to the meeting, remember, that's a good thing, cause you're doing good things. If we all show up in mass, wonder what you screwed up.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is put together a couple of pages, I'll email it to you, you can look it over, send it to them. I'll stick a number on there, and I'm good to get started as soon as I have okay from everybody.
Little numbers, cause I
Little
get
numbers,
very nervous.
little numbers, not like last time. Last time was huge and there was a lot of stuff that required initialization,
Yeah.
big learning curve, so no, little numbers.
Well, thank you very much.
No, thank you, can I go back to the Christmas
Yeah.
Go,
tree?
go to your plate.
Thank you, Anita.
Thanks,
Does
everybody.
anybody have any questions for her before she leaves? Anybody out in the?
Yeah, did you have a primary purpose and a secondary purpose?
Yes, the primary purpose was to provide information to the public in a timely manner, and the secondary purpose is to encourage participation.
Sitting up here soon.
I'm lucky to have one primary.
Thank you
I'm lucky to
all.
remember. Thanks, Anita.
Good night.
Okay, we're gonna go out of order a little bit. No, perfect. Administrative reports, financial update, discussion. We are blessed today to have with us the infamous business manager of the Wyndham Central Supervisory Union. Yay!
Which would you like to do first? I have a short presentation about what.
Oh,
the
he's
new-
gonna be ugly if you have a short presentation.
I know, we already discussed it.
Okay.
I'm gonna send it to him. It's all good, right? Short presentation about the new financial management system, what it will look like, what it will entail, some
Okay,
decision
well, So
points.
just a little background.
Sure.
So, remember we got the grant, we were all led to believe we got $150,000 that, well, oh, wait a minute, it's per supervisory union. Oh, and wait a minute, we take all your other grants away that we already gave you. Oh, and wait a minute, you can only do certain things with it. We couldn't go to Hawaii in February for a board retreat.
Is this what we're paying the
So,
40,000 for?
well, yeah, so part of it was when we said how much is left, the superintendent's office said there was 40,000 needed.
And
This is
that's
what
it.
you're gonna tell us.
45.
45.
This is what we're buying,
Right.
40. Do I hear 40?
45.
41.5.
45. Okay, so this is just a brief overview. Let me just make sure I can go to the next slide. Sorry, first time with this computer. All right, so first of all, I want to talk about what's happening at the state level.
Oh, you're moving.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Not sure how to stop that process.
I'll be your guy.
You're gonna be my guy? Okay. Oh, I must have hit the middle button.
You talk.
You just
I'll
hit
rock.
the, okay. What's happening at the state level? We are having a new chart of accounts by 2020. So that means that all the chart of accounts that we have now we will have to convert to the new chart of accounts. The state has sent out an RFP for a statewide financial management system. That would be the goal of the state, would be to have one statewide financial management system. The bids have been returned. They're doing the demonstrations now. I think there were 3 bidders on this. The state hopes to make a decision by spring 2018. That's probably pushing it, but unfortunately, we need to get rolling on what we're doing as far as with our vendor too. So the system will not be mandatory. There are a lot of pros to waiting and going with a statewide system, but there are a lot of unknowns at this point. Cost is one of them. Okay,
Hit that button. See. Okay.
look at that.
You're in
Okay.
control. All right.
So this is the existing chart of accounts which Wardsboro uses. This is not Dover's. This is what Wardsboro uses right now. You can see this is the new chart of accounts that we will be mandated to use. So automation is key because key punching all of those slows everything down. So what's going to happen? So in the conversion process, let's take a step back and look and see what has to happen. So we will export, even though this is a new database, brand new database, never been used, so to speak, we will be exporting some of the existing data out of both Wardsboro and Dover's financial management system that they have now. We'll have to make sure the data is good data to put in there. And then we will build the new data with the new chart of accounts. So this is a little visual for you. So Dover is on NEMRIC, I think it's called. Pretty older system. And basically, I'm not sure how much we'll export out of there, to be honest with you.
We're in a brand new school district, River Valley. It's not Dover School District it's anymore. What do we care about what happened before? When the school ends, the data will stop and we move into our new
And I agree with you,
valleys.
but there's payroll information that needs to come out of the old one into the new one.
For what?
For
What
the
staff? There won't be any Dover staff or Worcester staff. There'll be new
So
River
are
Valley
we going to
staff.
key punch every new employee in there? If they're the same employee that was getting paid out of Dover? There's no reason to do that, right? So there's an export-import that we'll be able to do. So for Wardsboro, for instance, this is an easy export it out of one database into another database. Either that or you key punch it in, right? I mean, it's, either way, you can do it that way. It just saves some time. So these are the things that would come out of the old ones. Human resource records, payroll information, the W-4s, that type of thing. Vendors, there's no reason to put new vendors, to key punch in new vendors when you can export them. Balance sheet accounts, your balance sheet accounts have to come out to go into the new database. And fixed assets. So that's what happens, and then you have to make sure the data is washed and make sure it's, you're not replicating vendors, for instance, and all of that. And then you import that into the new database, along with making sure that the chart of accounts is, the new chart of accounts is being used. Right now, Leland and Gray and Wyndham Central use an EREC system. So it would be my recommendation that any new database is going to use an EREC system because you're going to have 2 schools accessing the same accounts. So you have one.
What's an EREC system?
An EREC system is an electronic requisition system where the employee logs in and they say they want supplies and they pick the account code and it creates a PO. And so that's what is happening now in our 2 biggest databases. We also have in the two larger databases an employee self-serve, so there's no more pay stubs that are printed anymore or mailed. They all go online and they put in their leave online, and they also put in, or they can look at their W-2s and payroll stubs. So then there's training with that, and then possibly down the road an electronic time recording system. That's more for your hourly employees, because there's, right now I think in Wyndham Central we process something like 72 paper timesheets, which is not efficient. So that's sort of a visual of what would happen. So there's some decision points to be made. I've talked to several other business managers who have moved to Tyler Infinite Visions, which has cost them between 80 and 90K to go to a brand new financial management system. Then there's the statewide system that is supposedly coming online. I have no idea what that will cost to go to their system there, but I do know that Tyler is a bidder, and I find it hard to believe that the state's not going to go with Tyler, because there's so many now that have switched to Tyler. We use Harris School Solutions. That's who we've used for 25 years, I want to say. So then that was the $35,000 verbal quote that I got from Harris to do this for both River Valleys and West River Ed. I think that is it. So are there any questions?
Those are are there one-time charges, right?
So these are one-time charges to do the process.
Yeah, and then annual.
Right.
What is the range on the annual?
So currently we actually have a great deal. We pay about between $12,000 and $14,000 depending on the year and what's going on. I've heard upwards of $25,000 to $30,000 for Tyler. So.
Well, and this is a question for you, but, so all, basically, if I understand this, all the new merged districts are being asked to implement this software in their districts, I'm assuming, like, not just us, but this is a statewide program,
So
which makes,
the statewide, so there's two things there. The statewide account code structure is mandated. Everybody will be on that, no matter what you have now. But merging districts, they can either stay with who they have, or they can go to another vendor. The state, of course, hopes that everybody is going to go to the statewide system.
oh, it's not mandated?
No, you don't. You can. I mean that.
I mean, it would make, I mean, I understand the kind of the thinking, you have all these new districts,
Right.
let's get them all in the same system. But also, they're taking the money out of our grants in order to convert us
No,
all.
they're not.
They're not?
Wyndham Central is.
Oh, Wyndham Central is, okay,
It's
so
not
I'm trying to
the state.
understand how this is
Yeah.
working, okay.
No, this is Wyndham Central's business office saying this is what they want, so they can make us a new
But
district.
it's not mandated.
No, we can say we wanna do something different. And then Lori will get really mad and we'll lose her.
Well, I mean, it makes perfect sense, it's just a shame it's gotta come out of it.
I'm not sure what different you could do, but
Well,
I mean, we could think about that and talk about that.
If it was, yeah, it just, if it could be budgeted somewhere else, but obviously this is our district. so
But
we
this
gotta pay for it.
grant money, so the merger grant is allowed, you are allowed to use merger grant money to do this.
Right.
But there are some things you can't use it for. So it's definitely, the state foresaw this as
It's an opportunity.
an opportunity to get, you know,
And
and
they
then
knew that we all had the
typical,
money to do it. too.
typical of the state though, is you'd think they would have had their system in place before they started making us jump through the hoops.
Well, I mean, it makes sense.
So that they
It's
could
just
say this is gonna be the new state system and have it all contracted so that, because if she goes with Joe, John and his accounting system,
Right.
cause they give us a really good deal and then the state says that doesn't work and I need this system, you jump through the hoops all over again.
Mhm, mhm.
Right, and it may be something that we wanna look at. You know, if we stay with Harris now and convert the data, build the new database with Harris, then in 5 years, when the state system maybe is up and running and all the bugs have been worked out of it, then maybe we do wanna look at that. because it will create more efficiencies, because they will be able to pull our data instead of us sending it. They'll be able to come in, and the stat book that takes, weeks to do is basically, they'll just come in and pull that data.
Well, and maybe they'll actually make a chart of accounts so we could actually see in school budgets how much is going to direct instructional and.
That's exactly what's happening here. I mean,
Right.
to me, this is like some of the best news, that school
But
boards
again, we're,
could know. I
we're
know,
having,
it's 20 years. But the
And
chart of
and it's not your
accounts-
fault, and we're not angry at you.
No,
we're
no.
not.
I know it's not
Certainly
my
not.
fault.
The
Yeah.
chart of accounts is really important, and it's not something that we have. There's no good way to compare spending
Right.
across schools, and therefore, there's no, except for a very high level, what is the per pupil amount? You have no,
I
what's a
understand.
buy-in?
Right.
I
So
understand
we're
the process,
actually
and I
pretty close.
understand the importance of it, it's just the
You guys-
timing,
Hang on,
sorry,
I'm sorry. You're kind of running this section, so
I'm sorry.
Laura, you all good?
I'm good.
Dwight, do you have a?
No, I just wanted to continue that discussion, it makes
Okay.
sense, but it's just, my only beef is that it's being taken out of money that we may need for other
Right.
stuff, but,
Right.
okay.
And one of my concerns is, money to get the public involved and let them know what's going on. Now it's getting sent to something the state should have been doing years ago.
Mhm.
So, again, it's having to do something
Well-
that really doesn't make any sense. Go ahead.
What are these ongoing costs that we will have so we'll move to the system. So we have two things, right? So we have the chart of accounts, that's over here. So let's just talk about moving to this system, this
Right.
financial management system. So, and those ongoing costs will be replacing what costs that the two districts are incurring now.
Well, I'm not sure how much Dover pays for ongoing costs for the NEMRIC system. But Wardsboro is all part of Wyndham Central's bill that Harris sends to us, which is that $12,000 to $14,000. So I don't anticipate the yearly costs going up, to be honest with you. I would see no reason that, if anything, I would probably try to talk them down a little bit, because they would be managing 4 databases instead of 11, how many do we have? So I think that I could probably, say, well, you're not managing as many.
So if we go with Harris, we're gonna be doing the state mandated, chart of accounts, which everyone in the state is doing.
Correct.
So we'll be doing that, applying that to both districts' costs,
Right.
bringing those together, and then rolling into Harris, which would then only, into that into that management system, which would just be a change for Dover, because Wardsboro's already doing that.
Correct. That's right. And it will be more of a job to get Dover's in, because the chart of accounts isn't near this.
Right.
It's much different, and I'm not sure of the exporting and that type of capabilities of NEMRIC, because I just haven't worked with NEMRIC before.
And so we're proposing to pull dollars out of the grant to pay for what that we're not paying for already in our regular budgets? Like, what is the increased?
The 35,000
Yep.
that is developing the two
The
new,
joint?
the two new, yeah, so it would be one for River Valleys,
Mm-hmm.
one for West River. So that 35,000 is to create those 2 new databases,
Got it.
and then pull as much information that we need out of it to put into the new databases. Not budget items. I mean, that is separate. That's a totally different thing. But there's no reason not to pull data that is already out there that we use, that we will need, so.
And so afterwards, the annual cost will be one that Wardsboro has already been paying.
Right.
And
And so is West River. Everybody in West River.
Dover.
Dover and Marlboro are the only two that don't contribute at
And
this
ours
time.
just got taken care of at our treasurer's office, right?
Right. And Marlboro's treasurer, town treasurer does, school treasurer does a lot of theirs. When Newbrook went together and you combined Newfane and Brookline, what was the cost to them to combine their schools?
We actually have 3 databases because of the way that they're,
So there's still,
yeah. So we have a Brookline database, a Newfane database, and a Newbrook database that all have to be maintained. Right.
so who's covering the cost of that? Who covered the cost to make the new Newbrook database?
It was minimal cost because they're a pass-through. It's like 4 accounts, 4 revenue accounts, 1 expense account, or, that type of thing. So it was minimal, like a couple $1,000s a piece or something. I'm trying to remember back, but to give you some sort of comparison, back in 2013, I can't remember how long I had been here, but I worked with Frank to do a conversion from Data Team, that was our legacy financial management system, had to go to AptiFund, which is the one we currently use now. I believe it was 2013. Does that sound about right? That conversion cost about $24,000 at that time. So, how many years later, we're not that far off from the 35. So that was taking all the databases that we had in Data Team and making new databases in AptiFund.
So
Are there
I
any other
think just to
questions?
sum this up, we really don't have much of a say. Bill's already planning to take the money out. It's pretty much a done deal.
Yeah, maybe not.
Maybe not?
I
I mean, I don't see how
we
else
always
we-
have a say, right?
Yeah, okay, so what, instead of the 35, we're gonna give you 34,999 and
No, I mean,
99 cents and make it work. No, I don't see much of an option. Does
Yeah.
anybody here?
Yeah, the only other option is to explore or to wait until we know what the state database is going to be.
That's an option.
That is an option.
I
Yeah,
don't.
but we're gonna, but the state's not gonna decide that till after we need to be operating.
Yeah, I don't think it's a great
No,
option.
they're going to make that decision this coming spring, is what I've been told.
Right, well, this spring, but knowing the state, by the time they review everything and make their decision and get everything in place, we're gonna need a chart of accounts, because we're gonna have to be presenting a budget a year, less than a year, when they make their decision.
It
So,
would be a tight timeline.
yeah. Yeah, and it's not just us, it's also the West River Group.
That's right. So,
So I don't know, did we need to make a motion on this to,
So, your board and the West River Board needs to give direction to us about the expenditure of the grant.
okay, so this is gonna go back to that sheet we had last time about the grant budget, and you're looking for 35,000 for this.
Now, the 35,000 is the conversion to the database. But again, remember, I am suggesting that we budget 45,000, because we're either gonna be paying overtime, or we're gonna be paying stipends to get this work done. Because this is above and beyond what people's maxed out world is. And I'm very confident that we run a very efficient and lean operation, but this is a one-time burst of work that's gonna need to be done. And so I don't know exactly what that money will look like. I'm making that estimate. I'd rather estimate and then come back to you guys and go, hey, you have
But the-
3,500 extra
The
dollars.
grant budget is your it's a grant written to the supervisory union, it's not our grant.
Technically, I am the custodian of the grant, but it would be improper to just tell you I'm spending the money instead of having a discussion
No,
about.
but the other problem is it's not all our decision either,
Right.
it's West River's decision too. So I don't know if we even need to make a vote, I think by consensus, we can just say, Bill, lead us, do what you need to do.
The best thing
Not
for
to
me
ex-
would be for this group to decide on a consensus and empower the chair and the vice chair, that if I needed you to communicate with the other group, you know what I mean? Because what if they disagree?
Okay, so,
Yeah, I'd like,
go ahead.
I'd like to have us, I'd like to have us be just a little bit more formal, I think, about direction for the superintendent, which has nothing to do with the superintendent, but the fact that, people change, so I'd like to be just a little bit more formal.
Okay, and just so everybody knows, I did meet with the chair of the West River Group, when we were finding out about the budget, because it was, hey, happened to me in Townsend, and I was over there for the officers' meeting and the budget that we talked about the earlier meeting. And, you know, we both kind of looked at, you know, Bill gave us a piece of paper that we were able to bring back to our boards. And, you know, that Bill had said, you know, here's what we spent, here's what's left, here's the 45,000 we need to convert the business stuff over, here's what's kind of left. And we kind of came up with a, you know, we kind of said they have 2/3 of the students and we have 1/3, so we'll split the remainder that way, and hopefully everybody's good with it. So he was gonna bring that back to his board, I brought that back to you guys. So I mean, it's really like, it's not our expenditure, so I don't know how we can vote to say go ahead and do it, cause it's not all our money. So we can make a motion to support the superintendent in moving forward with his business manager's plans. But I don't,
Yeah,
I-
I mean, I don't even know if it's a motion so much as, you know, I mean, at least like polling the board, like, does the board support this general motion?
well, that's why I said a
or-
consensus of the
you know.
board is a polling of the board. If the consensus of the board is for the superintendent and his business manager to move forward. So does anybody object to them, to the business office and superintendent spending up to $45,000 to get their chart of accounts and their business management system together, financial management system together?
I have a question. Is this gonna come off the top of, here's the grant money that's left, this comes off the top?
Yep.
And then from there, we had the discussion at the last meeting of figuring out,
Right, there was
What's
45 on that, in that last, I actually saw the paper here, I know I have it, but that was already figured into it, that's what they needed, so they subtracted that out
right,
from that. So that's the number we looked at last time, so it's, the number shouldn't be a surprise, but we wanted to just have, so it was 150, 57, 914 was expense during study committee, it leaves $92,086, 45,000 financial transition, 35K was the quote I got from the accounting software company, 10,000 for auditors' fees and stipends for employees working additional hours to build a new database with the software company leaves 47,000. And out of that needs to go for legal fees, communications, videotaping, wave hi to him. Decision on how to disperse these funds will need to be discussed between the two new districts. So I think to go to her,
So, I mean, I just have a question for Lori and Bill, and, you know, do they want a little bit more specificity in terms of these three options here, in terms of our preference? Do you want flexibility to move between those things? Do you want us to kind of narrow that down?
I think that just a direction to start in now, if we do get some information about the statewide system and it's a great deal and, you know, it's gonna create efficiencies and it can be in place, then I would come back to you and talk about that. I don't think that moving to Tyler Infinite Visions is really an option on the table right now with the cost of it.
and I would just say that if we're not gonna go, we're not making a motion that says you shall go with this company for 35,000, I mean, that's why I'm saying if we just do a consensus, it does give them the flexibility to move, and that's why I'm not as, on this one, because it really, if this is money out of that we raise through taxes, I would feel different, because it is a grant budget and it is grant money, I feel more comfortable saying, go ahead and you've got the money at your disposal, do with it as, you know, in the guidelines of what you presented to us.
But we are gonna have to raise money out of taxes or in some way once this money is spent, because we're not gonna have anything left. So we have no.
But not for this item.
Well, no, but once that's spent and the money that's left, we've already sort of allocated that money as well. So we basically won't have anything left. We are gonna have to find a way, like, we're spending this money without having a way to raise money, so we won't have anything left. So it's like, I think that should be part of the discussion of how exactly we're gonna come up with the funds for the other things that we need.
We're gonna have to raise the money.
That's my point, so how is that?
How is that? We create a budget, we present it to the voters, and
But we don't,
So, may I ask, do you have a budget of what you wanna spend this money on? I mean, I know legal fees will be one.
Well, we have legal fees, we have communication, we have videotaping, we have whatever else the state throws at us. We
So,
have-
so would you like me to build a budget for this grant from both sides?
I don't think we need that.
So that you can see what are the what are the costs and what did we actually spend?
Well, because we don't know what are legal fees gonna be? We don't know how many times the state's gonna give us answers that they change their mind on, and we have to have revotes. We don't know what contractual negotiations are gonna look like until we get that presented. We could budget 30,000 for contractual and spend 300. We could budget 30,000 and spend 60,000. I mean, it's, I don't think we're there yet, cause we don't know exactly what's going on. We still as a group have to decide where we're headed in certain directions before we can start doing advertising, requesting legal fees. I think we know this is an expense we need. We know this has to be done. The sooner we start doing it, the quicker it's gonna get done, and we'll have a better idea where the money's at. And Dwight, yeah, we're gonna need to spend more money than what's left in the grant. And that's gonna be raised from the two towns when we present our first budget. We will spend some money, we'll have a deficit if we spend over this. And when we do our first budget, we're gonna say to people, here's what we've spent money on, and this is what we're gonna propose to spend on, and this is what we need to raise in taxes.
We'll do this in 2 weeks. It'll be overwhelming tonight.
Yes,
So you're saying, lop this off the top, and then, as opposed to Lori doing a budget, lop this off the top, and then we'll figure out with what's left.
right, well, we know
What we're gonna
what's
spend.
left. We know there's 47,000 left. If we agree with West River, they get 2/3 of that, and we get 1/3. So 1/3 of 47,000 is like 15.
Well, so, I don't wanna get into this tonight, but I asked Lori to, because we're operating under the rules of grants.
Yep.
And so we technically had 2 grants that, depending on how the state views it, could be 3 grants. So the first one is clean, it's the $5,000 exploratory grant, okay? Then the next set of grants was the $150,000, which is in the law, but they granted out 40,000, 20,000 each study committee, and that ended on June 30th, 2017. So in the world of grants, that 40,000 comes off of that 150, and they then reimburse the allowables after that. So we spent 52,000 instead of that 40,000, and they reimbursed us 34,365 because in Act 46 they didn't have allowable costs for communications. In Act 49 they did. Okay. So in the world of grants, we are gonna get 115,000 after that 150 minus that 34 and change. That'll be 115,000, but we spent 52. Okay? So there's gonna be this gap there. And we don't know yet if we can use some of that 115 to pay back that gap of that 12, or that 17 from the 34 to the 52. And so I asked Lori to lay all this out for you. I'm gonna send it to you so that you guys can look at it, but I don't wanna confuse everybody, but I want
Too late.
Too late.
but I want it to be unbelievably transparent, is my point. You know what I mean?
So here's what it boils down to. Whatever we get, we're gonna get.
Yes.
Whatever we need to spend, we're gonna need to spend. And this isn't the time to start trying to cut corners and, maybe we can get a different business manager and we can pay her $10 a year less. And then we can split that 2/3, 1/3, and we'll save an extra $3. I think we just gotta move forward and we gotta do this. It's not the way we've ever run a school in the past, but this is something we've never done before. We're creating a new school district. And I think, it would be really easy if we had, the state had told us that you will have 3 teachers and 1 principal and 1 janitor and 1 bus driver, and then we could make a budget and it would be really simple. We don't know what anything's gonna look like because we haven't even gotten that far. We don't know what transportation's gonna be. We don't know how much effort and time we're gonna put into having people figure out bus routes. We're talking about, there's 2 big policies we gotta come up with. One to deal with what building you get to go to, and the other one dealing with transportation. We don't know what that's gonna involve. So I think we could really sit here and discuss numbers for hours and get nowhere and not have any clue, or we can just start to move forward and, see where we wind up. And Dwight is-
Oh, and now the slide's gone. So,
Slide did you want?
the last one. So, the,
It's on the last piece of your paper.
it's on the last page.
Right there.
Okay. So, do we all agree on basically the third bullet? Or do we wanna wait? Is that essentially what we need to decide here? Like, would we rather wait for the statewide system, or would we rather ask Lori to start moving on this and look at?
I'd like to assign our superintendent to do what he thinks is best and move forward and keep us informed.
And I'm hearing our superintendent and our business manager ask for some direction. And they've presented us with 3 bullets.
We can provide a recommendation at this time.
Okay, so we've heard from you, Carrie.
So, I'd like to hear what the recommendation is.
Okay, Dwight?
I just wanna know, when we, like, all the grants gone, where does the money actually come from?
From the
And
school,
From
from
the
the two
school, so we
towns.
essentially borrow against the schools? Okay, so, and we have those funds available to us?
No, we'll have to get them.
We have to ask for that?
Right.
Okay. In a budget at a town meeting, or where do we ask for that?
At a school district meeting, it won't be a town meeting, it'll
School districts,
be
so
a
that-
meeting of the River Valley School District.
okay. So until that point, we won't have funds available for the
No, but
meeting?
we'll either be able to short fund one of us, or we'll borrow
That's what I'm asking.
through the SU, but no, there will be money, or one of our schools will say, hey, we're gonna put 100,000 towards this new school district, or 50,000, and the district will use it, and then it will be reimbursed.
We don't need approval of the citizens for that, we can, the board can authorize that. Okay, that's all I'm asking.
No, boards are allowed to borrow money in anticipation of taxes.
Okay.
That was my question, practicality, how are people gonna get paid in the interim?
Yeah,
Right,
and I'm not, it's Louise and my words.
okay, okay, that's good.
That was what these guys
I mean,
just talked about, that's exactly what we were.
So, Bill, are you guys wanna make a recommendation tonight, or do you wanna come back at a later date? Lori?
I'm
Thank you.
comfortable.
Yeah,
We've talked about this multiple times. It would be to expend the approximate $45,000 to do the conversion in our current system for the 2 districts going into one, and then to come back and give you guys an approximate amount of money that you will have to use to draw down on.
Okay, the problem is we can't approve you to spend up to 45,000 for this, because it's not all our money, it's some of
Correct.
it's River Valley's. So,
But we can,
Yeah.
we can see what the consensus, if there is consensus on the board to support that position,
okay.
right?
Do you agree with that?
Because if we didn't
No,
all.
fine, do you agree with that?
Yes, I do.
Do you agree with that? Dwight?
What am I agreeing with?
That the superintendent and business manager move forward with approximately a $45,000 expenditure to move towards the,
To do the conversion in the
To do
current
the
system for
conversion.
the 2 districts going into one, and give an
It's-
approximate
Right.
amount against which the board may draw down.
That sounds like something that's
Wonderfully
pretty.
put.
Yes, yes, sure.
there's consensus.
Like he said.
Everybody agreed.
We're all agreeing.
Thank you, Richard.
You're welcome.
It's all gonna make our life easier.
No, it isn't. And to be honest with you guys, I am really upset that this comes out of our dimes and out of that grant money, because it should have been something that the state should have had years ago.
Mr. Chair, to be honest with you though, I don't want us with that to just be saying, go do what you think is, this is, I know we can't, I know it's not just our decision, but I really would like to see us take positions, even
Well,
if we can't take
and-
formal votes.
I mean, our position is, and as always has been, get us the best bang for our buck
I
and do
understand.
what needs to be done. And I think we give our superintendent a certain amount of authority.
Thank
And I
you.
feel like when I almost felt like that was micromanaging, that's my,
But our
but
is
let's move on,
different now,
because it's all
Mr.
done.
Chair.
Yeah. Andrew, under administrative reports, as our clerk, so last meeting, we tasked Andrew to contact an attorney. Unfortunately, that attorney did not feel comfortable, but he put Andy in touch with another attorney. And,
So here's a handout. The second half is the answers to your questions from last meeting. I contacted Jim Barlow. He said he could handle our questions, but he wasn't the expert on such things. And the firm of Stitzel, Page and Fletcher, whom the town has used for 20 years, the town of Dover, and Bill's used, highly regarded law firm. He said they would be the ones to go with in case there were further questions that he couldn't handle. They've been through a number of Act 46 mergers, and he suggested I contact them. I did. I spoke with a guy named Dave Rue. And Dave Rue answered my questions in that email, which is the second part of the handout. I don't know if you wanna look at each question individually,
Why don't
how
we
you
do
wanna
that, if
handle
that's
it?
okay?
Okay, sure.
Just because I think this was some really stuff that people were concerned about. So
Excellent.
go to the page with the answers.
So, page number 2 of the email, second part there, says number 1. Can they vote their budget from the floor? In particular, some directors remember being told that the first budget vote has to be by Australian ballot. Dave Rue's answer. Since Article 13 of the district's final report states that the budget will be voted on by Australian ballot, the more conservative and recommended approach is to vote on the budget by Australian ballot at least this first time, meaning 2019. The Australian ballot vote can be held at each of the Dover and Woodsboro town offices or at the usual polling places in conjunction with town meeting day, since the ballots from each member town will ultimately be commingled and counted together. So, basically, last time I was here, I told you folks that you could change the Australian ballot vote to a floor vote just by a vote of you folks. And Dave is saying in this answer that that's probably not a good idea for you to change that, at least for this first vote in 2019. He's saying the conservative approach would be to leave that in place. Second question, how can they change to a floor vote? So if you want to change to a floor vote instead of the Australian ballot, arguably the River Valley's Unified School District board could change the method of budget voting to a floor vote by a majority vote of the board pursuant blah blah blah. Since Article 13 of the final report was not incorporated verbatim into Article 1 of the warning for the unification vote. That said, since it normally requires a vote of the electorate to change, so basically, in any other instance, town meeting, for a town, or for a sewer district, in order to change from Australian balloting on public questions, say, to a floor vote, it requires a vote of the electorate, right? The board can't do that. So basically, the fact that in Act 46, you're given the power to change those things is more or less a contradiction of a general principle in Vermont law where the people get to change that, not boards like you. So he's saying conservatively, while it looks like you can change that, you shouldn't. If you want to change it, give it to the people, recommend to them that they change it, but they would be the ones who change it.
That was a discussion we had, like we could bring it up for a vote after. And you know what else, Amy, I find interesting is this thing, because it wasn't part of the verbatim for the warning.
Right.
And that was why we added that no school could be closed without a vote of the electorate to make it more, he kinda confirmed what we were told on that too in the beginning.
Yep, so basically his answer on how to change to a floor vote. If you guys wanna change to a floor vote in 2019, put it in the warning. He said by Australian ballot with the budget, you could say, ask the people, hey, do you guys wanna change to a floor vote for your budgets? And then they can decide that. All right, number 3, the question, can they change the election of directors so that Woodsboro elects theirs from the floor at Woodsboro town meeting and Dover elects theirs by Australian ballot at town meeting day? The answer is basically yes, for this one, and he goes on about the details of that. There's nothing that you have to do immediately, or no decisions that you have to make immediately, but it's a lot easier here. You could do things this February if you wanted to change that. And it's less critical to do the conservative thing here as opposed to changing your budget vote, because directors, if you screw up, you can just get new directors. You can appoint ones that weren't voted properly, or have a special meeting and validate what was done improperly at a meeting. Whereas with the budget, if you screw that up, people aren't getting paid for a while. So he lets you know in this that you can basically change how the directors are elected. If Wardsboro wants to still vote this from the floor, you can do that. Yes, it is permissible. Let's see, so the fourth question was, if you wanted to designate the supervisory union treasurer as the district treasurer, how would you do this? Who designates? And he says that the treasurer is designated by the voters of the River Valley's union district. Some new unified district under Act 46 have designated their treasurers to be the supervisory union SU treasurer. The problem with this is that the River Valley's Union School District Treasurer is technically supposed to be a resident of River Valley's Unified School District, and often the SU Treasurer lives outside the Unified District. We have seen one instance where the Treasurer was designated to be, the SU Treasurer was designated to be the Unified District's Treasurer, then challenged by a voter because they were not a resident. In that case, the Unified District had to hold a special meeting and elect a new treasurer. In most instances, however, the residency requirement is overlooked and voters do not challenge the designation. Basically, he said to me that on the phone, you would put it in the warning for the people to vote on, shall the voters of the district designate the supervisory union treasurer to be your treasurer. Let's say the voters say yes, you guys back it up and defend it, the voters say yes, it's done. There's a question mark because of the way it was set up, that if somebody challenges it, what do you do at that point, I think probably it would have to be a pretty formal challenge beyond somebody saying, hey, he's not a resident, and you saying, well, the thing says here that the SU treasurer can be designated. It's gonna work out really well, and people say, oh, okay, and that's the end of it. It would probably have to be a challenge in writing, but it might not fly, in the worst case scenario.
So Andy, if it's okay, let's do this.
Yep.
So you reviewed that with us, and we've had these discussions, so let's go back to question the 1 and 2, the floor vote and the budget vote. How does the board feel about that? Is that something that we wanna try to bring up at the next meeting, or is that something we wanna just let go, or what's the opinion? So we can if it's something that we think we may wanna change and we need to bring to a vote, then it's something we're gonna have to think about, because we're gonna have to put it on the warning for next year's annual meeting. So is that something the board wants to see change, that we don't go to budget by Australian ballot, or is that something we wanna just let go? Is that not a worthy cause to work on now?
Well, I think wasn't part of the concern also about Andy being the clerk, about his ability to do that if it was Australian ballot, right? That's creating really work that would be almost impossible when you're talking about so close to town meeting day, right?
Yes, Carrie, and the first part of the handout is a memo to you folks with my thoughts on these questions. And one thing to remember, and I'm not sure, Richie, with you asking the board, if you caught that the change to the way the budget is voted, it would be best if you were going to do that, if it happened in 2019, you don't have to worry about it for the 2018 budget. Basically, David Rue is saying it's a good idea for you to go ahead with the Australian ballot for the budget and the directors, I assume, for 2019. So you can put those off and think about them over the course of the next year.
I was just wondering if we do at our first district meeting, if that's something we should bring up. If that's something we're thinking of doing ahead of time,
Mhm.
then it would be a good discussion to start having with the voters, even though we don't
It's a
have
good
to do
thing to
that.
think about.
So that we're
Yes.
getting a little bit of,
Mhm.
ahead of ourselves, because if, we are gonna have to have some stuff from the floor, we do have a floor meeting,
Yes.
and do we wanna bring those, and that's why I wanted to go through each of these to
Yeah.
see if we wanna, cause if it's something that, if we don't feel strongly, if we're okay voting by Australian ballot, we won't worry about this, and it'll be what it'll be. If it's something we think we wanna try to change, then let's put that on our agenda and our list, cause we're gonna need to come up with a work list on what we need to do, so that's kinda where I was trying to go.
Yes, and that's a good idea for you guys to think about that now. And one of the things I wanted to tell you, as far as what Kerry was saying, with me being the clerk and handling a Australian ballot vote on town meeting day, it's gonna be a complicated question. So, and we can get way in the weeds on it. And you're gonna have to in order to make a good decision. And my handout, my little memo there, talks about some of the concerns. And basically, talking with the attorney, it was a good thing. I appreciate the fact that you let me do that, and spent the money, because I feel a little differently about it now than before I talked to him. Basically, if you vote your budget by Australian ballot on town meeting day, you're gonna get the greatest turnout, okay? If you vote from the floor, less people will participate in the budget vote. If you vote your, budget, if you vote your budget and you don't commingle the ballots, it's gonna be a lot easier to coordinate that vote, because the individual towns can count the ballots the same way we do in Dover when we count it. It'd be one ballot, just stick that on the end of it, we count easy schmeezy, call it the district clerk, Dover had this many. It's the way it's done in Leland and Gray. Now, if you don't commingle the ballots, you wind up with a vote total for Dover and Wardsboro. So it depends upon how much you think you need to create a sort of a team atmosphere or approach, how much divisiveness you might think there would be on future questions that would have to be considered by Australian ballot, as to whether you think commingling is important. Commingling the ballots means they all go in one box. Nobody knows how many people from Dover voted to shut down the art program in Wardsboro. You know, it could be on a contentious issue problematic.
You'll know the total numbers that voted, but you don't know how many yeses and nos came from each specific.
Exactly, right? Now, if you don't have your vote happen on town meeting day, again, much easier to coordinate. You don't need me to do that. And if you did want me to do it, it'd be a lot easier for me to do that, because it wouldn't be on town meeting day. But in the case of Leland and Gray, I looked just online at their website, Newfane's website. Town meeting voter turnout for Newfane, you know, for Newfane's portion of the Leland and Gray vote was 31% of the turnout for Newfane at town meeting day. So, okay,
Town
if
meeting wasn't
you don't,
100%.
if you don't vote on town meeting day, if you don't do this on town meeting day, which is a big pain in my neck, but if you don't do that, you're looking at 31% of the possible votes that you would have gotten if you had the vote on town meeting day. It gets complicated, and you have to try, and as much as it's difficult for me to think about doing this on town meeting day, and personally how much I don't want to do it, you know, the questions that Dave was bringing up, you guys have to think long and hard about what's best for the kids and the voters, and we'll make it work one way or the other. But it's kind of technical, nerdy stuff that, you know, town clerks love to talk about, and regular people go, oh, why, are you still talking about this?
So, do you guys mind, and let's do this, has anybody really read this memo before tonight?
No, I just, that's okay.
Cause this is the one we sent out, you didn't change this, right?
No, I sent that to you guys like Friday maybe?
A couple days ago,
Yeah.
yeah, I saw it come
Why don't
through.
we do this then, because there's a lot of things in looking at the timepiece. Is everybody let's think on this, here's what we need to come up with. We need to decide what's important to us, what we wanna move forward with, and when we wanna move forward with it. Let's just for an example, let's just take number one. If we're okay voting, if we wanna vote from the floor and we decide that's something important, then we just need to kind of know that we gotta put that in queue, that there's gonna be a time that we're gonna need to have that, all those questions asked, put it all together to be able to present it to the voters. And I think with all these, so let's everybody think about this, it'll be out there now because nobody else has gotten to see this except for us. And then let's put this off till the December meeting, the first meeting in December, when we're back here, and let's discuss that again. If nobody has a problem with that.
No, it's fine, I mean, everything you said was true, I mean, absolutely everything, I mean,
Yeah.
we have had our meeting the night before, attendance has been the lowest as we've had it the night before, I mean, everything you said is absolutely true, so I mean, there's a lot to think about here.
And I'm concerned just because, 31% of whatever percentage actually votes, because, I mean, on a good town meeting, what's the best you've ever had for percentage of voters?
Oh, I don't know, it sort of bounces around maybe a
50-ish?
quarter,
Oh, that low?
25% maybe, for a vote, okay, at town meeting, for the people who show up from the floor, and you have like, say, 7 people raise their hand, you do a paper
Right.
ballot, probably a quarter of the voters are there.
But I mean, how many vote by ballot on town meeting day?
Okay, so, more than that, yeah,
Sorry.
She's getting
depends on what's on the ballot, I don't know, gosh,
40?
more than that maybe.
So even if it's 50, if you're getting 30% of 50,
Hmm.
you're
Yeah.
getting less than 25%, right? No, you're getting a little over 25%. 15% of 50, pardon?
15%.
Okay, so it's a lot less, so I mean, it's,
It's a big decision.
yeah. Yeah, there's a lot to think about this, why don't we take, is everybody okay with that, or does anybody
that's
wanna
fine.
try and make a decision tonight?
Think about it.
Andy, this was some good research,
This is
Cool.
weird.
and we do appreciate your first page too.
Can I just ask for a general target of when we should have some sense of what we wanna start talking about publicly? Would it be at the next meeting, or like,
Well, in the December meeting,
at the December meeting,
yeah, we'll go through this in more depth.
and come up with some sort of?
Well, and I don't think we have to make actual decisions, but we should decide things that we want, are there things in here that we totally don't, we just wanna leave alone? And are there things in here we wanna try to change, cause if we need to make changes, that's when we really should put it into queue so that we can say, okay, if we wanna make this change on how we vote, let's just use that. And we wanna have that, we wanna do that at our next meeting or the meeting after, then we have to say, okay, if we're gonna do it at our next annual meeting, we're gonna have to start thinking about that in September of next year. So let's have the discussion about it being like June and July, so that in September we can come up with whatever article we wanna put, so that by October, we can have it set, and then it can get moved forward. Cause there's gonna be a lot of things we're gonna be having to do.
So, as well, I thought you would probably have a lot on your plate over the next few months. So when you read my little memo, you'll notice that I talk about a lot of these decisions that you're gonna have to make ultimately, recommending or not to the voters, whether they change these things. But the only decision that you really need to make before your annual meeting in February is whether or not you want me to do the Australian ballot at town meeting in 2019. And if you want me to do that, I've outlined in here what I will need to do that. Vote tabulators are $6,000 now, but Will Senning was very positive about getting us one. at the state's expense. I talked to him on the phone this morning, so I think we'll probably have that in place, regardless of who's the clerk. That will be a nice thing to have. And the only decision you really need to make before your next annual meeting is whether or not you want me to do it. And,
And you're
in
saying that now,
2019.
Andy, because you have been elected.
Right.
You
I
are the
have been
current-
elected.
Right.
So
Okay.
in February, you're gonna elect
A new
myself or somebody else as clerk.
Got it.
And that's the only decision you really need to make. You can spend the whole rest of next year deciding on this stuff, though you might wanna bring it up to the voters at your meetings, see what they feel. You might wanna be thinking about this stuff, but the only decision you really need to make is whether you want me to do it in 2019.
Okay.
All right? Cool.
Well, there's another decision that has to be made too.
What's that?
See, we need to know who's gonna run for that position. Because we may want you to do it, but that doesn't mean you're gonna run. So is that saying
Well,
that if we vote
alright.
that we want you, you will run?
You have to decide whether you're going to nominate me and ask the people to vote for me.
And you would do that if we asked for another
If-
year?
If you pay me what I ask you to pay me, I will do it. If you do not, I will not do it.
Okay. $2,000 is pretty fair.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah.
Are you being honest or are you lowballing them?
No, I'm being honest,
You
Bill.
sure?
I'm being honest. If I thought that it made sense for somebody else to do this, I would be out in a heartbeat, because I do not, for any money, wanna run another vote on town meeting day. I
That's
don't
why I'm
wanna do
wondering if
it.
you're lowballing.
But when I look at the situation and I think, if I put some poor person in this position and they blow it up,
You're gonna deal with it
I-
anyway.
I don't wanna do that to anybody.
Okay.
If you decide not to do an Australian ballot on town meeting day, have somebody else do it, awesome. If you do decide to go with an Australian ballot on town meeting day, you should probably, I can't see somebody else being able
So-
to do that.
So this whole topic could take a meeting. I mean, I think we could spend some time on this. So let's have that conversation again on the 6th
Mm-hmm.
and see where we're going. Because this coming up meeting, there's no budget to vote on. There's no officers to elect other than the moderator and the presiding officer, and the clerk and the treasurer.
Correct.
We've pretty much got it, we have to discuss what we think about the treasurer's thing. Do we wanna go against the law and just appoint the business manager? Or do we wanna elect the treasurer of a resident? So we need that discussion. And we'll discuss the clerk issue, and then we can move forward. So can you make the December meeting?
Sure, if
We'll be back here.
if you think you need me, I mean, I got everything here. You might have a better time talking about it
No, I
without
would
me
love to
here,
have you here,
you know?
because there may be something we missed or something that
Okay.
you wanna bring up. I mean, that's up to you. Is that good with you guys?
Yeah.
I mean, he is our clerk, it's the district clerk, he's not being the Dover clerk today, or even though the thing says Dover, town of Dover on it, it's really, we'll have to get him some nice River Valley letterhead. But, yeah, I think it would be good, Andy,
Alright,
so we make
it's
sure.
not during muzzleloader season, is it?
I tell you what,
It might be.
It
we'll
is.
do the second December meeting, cause that's in Dover.
Excellent.
And we try to,
Perfect.
we wanna try to make sure any major topics we discuss them in both locations.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Just ask Andy one more question.
Yes.
Ideally, what is the best kind of situation if you were gonna be the clerk in your mind, as far as, I mean, I know that there's pros and cons about having on town meeting day versus having a
Yeah.
separate Australian ballot versus floor, but, you know, in an
If-
optimal situation.
If I were in your position, what I would be thinking about is, by doing it on town meeting day by Australian ballot, you're gonna get the most, voter input, okay? But, by doing it from the floor at your annual meeting, okay, the people get to show up, you get to explain the budget to them, okay, they're not, reading Facebook, coming in when your meeting's all done, saying no way to the budget on their ballot and walking out. They come, you face them face to face in a meeting, you explain the budget, they ask questions. If they wanna vote no on the if they're not happy with the budget, they can amend it.
Right.
And then, which is what Dover and Woodsboro are used to, they can amend it and you can get to yes. Whereas with the Australian ballot, they only have, when they're unhappy, the nuclear option of voting no. And then you have to revote. You guys have to go back to the drawing table. You have to come up with a new budget, guess what they might want, a number they might accept, what programs they wanted to cut or not or whatever. You watch it in other towns, it's a nightmare process. And there's something that I absolutely love about the meeting, about town meeting or a school district meeting, where voters come together with their elected officials in the same room, talk about things, make it work. It's, to me, it's like this sacred thing that happens. And the Australian ballot thing is just like a sacrilege, you know, it's like horrible, I hate it.
And my take on that too is that they may have voted it down because it wasn't high enough, and you have no way of knowing that.
You know,
And it's just
in my
crazy.
opinion, those are the trade-offs, and it's a difficult decision. That's my feeling as a town clerk, and I'm like, you know, I love town meetings, but the fact that you're getting a much higher voter turnout at an Australian ballot on town meeting day is a really good argument for doing it that way. So it's tough, it's a tough decision. I'd probably go for a floor vote.
And from a clerk's perspective of actual
Work.
work, the Australian ballot is by far.
Exactly, if you vote it from the floor, give me, you know, a few $100 and I'm good. You know, cause I'm gonna be taking minutes and, you know, keeping records, which I already do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we'll be on the second meeting in
18th.
December.
Cool.
Monday the
18th?
18th.
Alright, sounds good.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Andy. Thank you. Awesome.
Hey
Andy,
folks,
may
so,
I email you a question or two about?
so
Absolutely.
just because we're about 10 minutes away from getting done, I wanted, so
I'm just stretching.
West River hired Vermont School Boards Association to do some work with them to get their board organized, the West River Board. So I went to both classes. The food was really good at the first one. The second one involved chicken, so it wasn't as good for me. So I have a bunch of stuff from there, and I wanted to do that tonight.
Not
So-
leftovers, right?
Not leftover foods. One of the things, I had this really cool thing, it says, keep your goals for students and taxpayers in mind. How can this work be done in a way that will lead to enhanced learning opportunities for students? And how can this lead to more efficient operations? And I thought, I got two of these that Matt laminated after Bill printed for us. And I thought these would be good to have when we're meeting, so we can kind of like focus our, you know, it used to be, is there a law, is there a policy? You know, is there a procedure, and then we can go ahead and vote. So I just thought that was kind of cool. I think we're a lot further ahead than the Leland, the West River, because we kind of have a mission statement. One of that first meeting was a lot just building on the mission statement. And then the second meeting had some stuff with school board responsibilities, learning groups, they call them. They don't call them, like committees. So, just because we're running, I wanted to do this under new business. And I missed it because of moving up with the financial, but I think if everybody's okay, I'm gonna try to get this sent out to you ahead of time, so read it, please. Peter, you have the PowerPoint, right, from,
As it happens, I do, and it's pretty much verbatim in the minutes with Ms. Holson's commentary interlarded.
okay. Well, will
Check
you-
the minutes out.
Yeah, will you send the PowerPoint out to everybody? Can you send it to me?
I can send it to you,
Send it to me and I'll get it to everybody.
okay?
And then maybe we can spend like an hour just kind of looking at. One of the big takeaways, there's a couple good things, but one of the takeaways I got from that is we need to come up with a calendar and we need to come up with what we need to accomplish when, so we kind of can get on task and see where we're going. And one of the big things that there was a question asked that I really liked because I wasn't sure and I wanna just throw it out there and I don't wanna have an answer tonight. you know, but it's like, what are we, the question they were having issues with is, you know, what are we trying to create, where are we going with it? And again, you know, keeping in mind that, you know, we're trying to create enhanced learning opportunities for students. And we're also keep in mind the taxpayers in budgets, which I think Dover and Wardsboro have been really good about. And I don't think you guys have ever had a budget voted down, have you?
We did probably, it's probably like 12 or 13 years ago.
Because it wasn't enough?
No. Just people didn't understand
Yeah.
exactly what Andy was talking about.
So we'll work on that. The last two things we had was building and engineering study discussion, transportation discussion. So Dwight, you brought up building engineering studies, but you don't think the Wardsboro board will do that?
I'm not sure. So I reached out to the engineer, and I sent you guys an email today about what basically is entailed in that, and I'm actually gonna here if you want me to kind of read it to you. But
Sure.
so basically engineering study, what it includes is a review of the condition of the siding, roofing, ventilation, chimneys, caulking, other important conditions related to the exterior of the building. So essentially it's a overview of the entire building, the mechanical systems, the exterior of the building, framing, all that kind of stuff. A thorough site review to assess drainage systems, exterior lighting, relevant site conditions, a thorough inspection of the interior of the buildings, understanding the quality of workmanship materials, relevant to the ownership of the property. Review of the construction for compliance with drawing specifications and good construction practices. Report discussing the current condition of the facility. So then he goes on to say what the entire review would include. It's the same kind of stuff, the structure, the mechanical systems, exterior, site conditions. And then based on all that, they'll put together a capital study of how much money is necessary to fix everything they find is wrong. So that's basically what it's at. So Wardsboro kind of talked about this, and they had some interest in doing it, but they wanted to know what this group felt, and I'm not sure if Dover had a chance to talk about it as well, or what your guys' thoughts were. Me personally, I think we should put it into our budget for the first district budget, but that's my opinion on that. However, we can get an RFP from these guys, so we know exactly what we're up against. We can do that now.
And depending how much it is,
Right.
I don't know what Wardsboro's policy is for expenditures.
Well, I know we have some money available to us.
No, but like,
But in
if
terms
you
of-
put, if in Dover, and I'm sure it's with you guys,
Yeah.
there's something there. Yeah, if it's over a certain amount of money,
Oh,
you
right.
have to do an RFP. If it's a
okay.
lesser amount, you could do it by, you know, just
Mhm. Oh.
quotes or,
Yeah, that's statute.
oh, you just use a statute?
We just use whatever the state statute is.
15K.
Okay, so we're well under that, right?
You'd be well under that for the study.
3 to
sure.
7,000.
Yeah, yeah.
Is what you got for a number?
I didn't get enough. I didn't get
Oh,
enough,
okay.
But
That's what we're looking at
the
for the other
basing
schools.
that on.
Leland and Gray was 7,200, and they
The
do it by
biggest.
space.
By square footage, probably.
Right.
Mhm.
I mean, Dwight was the one who got us going with all the other groups over there. Everybody's doing it.
Yeah, this is the thing.
Even Newbrook's gonna have
Everybody's
a
doing
robust discussion about doing it.
Wow. So.
Don't, you're close to her, she'll get after you for using that word too much.
Mm.
Okay, so what does the board think?
What is the question? Now or later?
Well, yeah,
Period,
Dwight's
do it at all?
suggestion is to move it and make it part of the budget in the new district.
However, I mean, otherwise, each board would have to vote on doing it
Right.
themselves prior going into it.
And this has to be done
Do-
regardless.
Doesn't need to be
No,
done.
it doesn't have to be done.
It does need to be done. I think
It's expensive.
it's prudent to have 8 billion, know where we stand going in.
I think it's, one of the reasons I think it would be more important beforehand is, let's just say Dover's roof, I know, is 20+ years old, and a membrane roof has got a 20-year life expectancy. And a membrane roof is the kind that it's good till it's not good.
Right.
And, you know, when we replaced it 20-something years ago, you know, the guy said it's like a mirror, you know? You'll see yourself great until you get that first crack, and once you get that first crack, it just goes to... And we're gonna be building budgets out a few years. We also, both schools have some reserves. I think we're gonna be in a much better position than other school districts forming, where we could maybe allocate some of our reserve monies that we have in-house towards a new reserve when we start our new district, to say that, hey, look, you know, in 5 years from the studies we had, in the building in Wardsboro, we're gonna be looking at some siding, and in the building in Dover, we're gonna be looking at a roof, and hey, both schools, they both just upgraded their water systems, but both heating plants are 25 years old, so
Right.
we put some money away towards that. I personally would think it's something, if we could talk the boards into funding it now, even if they fund it out of reserve monies that they have, I think it's gonna help us moving forward to know where we're going, and to help us better build a budget and better help build this new schools district.
Is that what the other schools?
Did you have a chance to talk about it
taking
in
out
Dover or not?
Pardon?
You haven't spoken about
There-
it?
Yeah, we
don't
talked
decide
about it in
how-
Dover, but we,
If they're gonna put it in this year's budget, I mean, we're all building budgets
yeah,
right
and
now.
Carrie, well, we can't be having 3 different discussions.
Yeah, sorry, but I
Yeah. So,
wanna
go
ask
ahead
that
and now
question.
ask your question so everybody can hear.
Well, I'll wait until,
No, go ahead, it's your turn.
so I wanted to ask, what are the other schools doing of the other?
So they're having the
District.
exact same discussion you guys are having about, they've committed, all but one have committed that they're gonna do it. And they're just waiting to have the conversation about whether they're going to put it in each individual school's budget, or if they're going to take it out of their very little left in their grant budget. They're very heavily leaning towards just putting it into individual school budgets. They're looking at between $300 and $4,500. And they see the great value of what you guys are seeing, which is, what does the landscape look like as you partner up?
I mean, so I would, we can't vote for them, but we can recommend that this group vote it and move forward,
Yeah.
if that's what we want. But again, Carrie, you had the floor, so.
Nope, that, you
Yep.
answered my question, I was curious of what our,
Okay.
other side is doing.
Anybody else on the board?
And this would not be capital reserve, right? This would not be a capital expenditure, because we have a capital reserve.
It
could.
You
Yeah,
could take it out of
sure.
wherever you want.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, it's definitely falls under that.
that would be my
See, I
rec-
thought there were certain rules that you had to follow for a capital expenditure, it had to be depreciable.
Well, you have to look at how you set your capital up. Because we have
think
like
that's how
4
we have it
different
set up.
reserve funds.
I think that's how
So
it's set up here, but
You
I
guys
don't
are in good
remember.
shape.
Yeah, there's money there. I just didn't know if
The
we would
former
spend for something
chair
like
left.
this. Yeah.
Boards were in really good shape, so.
Good shape.
he was a good guy, you should have met him.
What a guy.
I mean, this, to me, is important to do ahead of time, specifically so we can set up those capital reserve funds
Absolutely.
again.
And I don't think
even-
Wardsboro's ever had one done, not to interrupt, sorry.
Oh,
But I don't think, they've had people come in, they've had Efficiency Vermont come in, they've had other.
oh,
they've
you
never
mean an
had- they've never
engineering
had an
study, not a
engineering
capital
study
reserve?
come in.
Okay,
No, they've never had an engineering firm come in and look at
Yeah.
the entire building, they've had people come in and look at portions of the building, such as the heating system, such as.
Whatever was failing at that time.
It wasn't really failing necessarily, but it was just whatever, whatever we thought needed to be done within the next 10 years.
yeah. And I mean, at this point, we're all in it.
Right,
So we should
right.
figure out what we're dealing with and what our plan is for going forward.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I would agree, I think, and now you've convinced me to kind of go ahead earlier, but just to talk about Wardsboro board, they were looking for direction from this board. If, I think they wanted to wait and see how we felt, and I think they would be agreeable to whatever this board thought they should be doing.
So, one thing, I gotten a name of a person from you. I also got 2 other names when I
Yeah.
was looking at the condos. So I've got 3 other
Yeah.
firms. So what I would like to do though, if we're gonna do that, is just, I think, pardon?
Put out an RFP,
Yeah, I think just,
same person,
huh?
same company for both buildings?
Yeah, what I was gonna say was, whatever we
Combine
do,
the two.
we should get the same group, and we should just ask for what they're gonna get, and maybe if the boards will allow it, let this group maybe do the RFPs and make a recommendation
Yeah.
to the to the Dover and
Yeah.
Wardsboro board,
Yep.
so that we're using the same person, and then that way we've also done our due diligence. This is something, I think there's more people out there than, if you're going out to bid a accounting system, there aren't that many companies that do accounting systems that will meet the state regulations,
Yeah.
but. So do we wanna make a motion that we move forward in creating that? Do we wanna have an RFP at the next meeting to review and vote on that? To ask the superintendent to send out?
Can we make a motion to do that? Because don't the other,
Yeah.
don't the
We'll
boards?
make
We
a
can make a motion
recommendation.
to make a recommendation.
Right.
Okay, I move that we recommend to the Dover and Wardsboro boards that we do an RFP for engineering studies for both buildings in this year's budget. That's not quite right.
No, can you withdraw that?
Yes.
Let's do this, let's go back to respective boards, say that this board is gonna put together an RFP to be voted on at the next meeting. And that we'll try to get them the best price, and we will bring to them a recommendation on somebody we want to, so let them kinda know ahead of time. Yeah.
But don't they need to vote to give us the authority to
They,
do that?
well, they'll vote to agree to do it.
Okay.
Well, cause you said your board was looking for some guidance from
They
this board.
were, yeah.
Well, then let's make the motion real simple, let's vote to discuss with the two boards to move ahead with the study.
Yeah.
Recommend,
That the two boards move ahead with the study.
okay.
Yeah, that's
I
fine.
move that we recommend that the two boards move ahead with the engineering study for both buildings this year.
Yes.
Yeah, just engineering study, I'm not sure if that's the right term
Is it-
for this, is it?
Is it reserve study in engineering?
Capital reserve study. Is it capital reserve study?
Building
That's what I
reserve
thought.
study?
I don't know.
You know, we've been referring to it as an engineering study.
Engineering
Let's
study.
see what they refer to it in here.
Yeah, what are they called?
Yeah, they might know better than us.
Yay. Capital needs assessment proposal.
I like that.
Yes, that's what I meant.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. There you go.
Good motion, Laura.
Very
Thank you.
good.
Somebody wanna second it?
Second.
Okay, Carrie seconded Laura's motion. Is there any more discussion?
There was a name for this that you just
Oh.
said?
Let me say it
Capital
again.
needs assessment.
Proposal.
Capital Needs
Second.
Assessment Proposal.
And this will give us kinda like, you ought to plan on spending this much money and give us that kinda like that timeline, so.
Yeah,
Perfect.
good, excellent.
Okay, is there any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Cool. So we talked about transportation and school usage, getting a group together of parents and forming, and we're not calling them committees, we call them
Learning groups.
learning groups. So, I don't know, did that go out through the schools? Matt, did anything
Because
go
if
out
you
to
do a committee,
Dover?
then you have to warn it, you have to do all those things. And a learning group has a goal of coming back to the board and saying, this is what we've learned.
Okay.
Mhm.
Do we still wanna do that? Do we wanna ask the two building administrators if they would be willing to put something out that we wanna form these learning committees to
Okay.
look at? Or is that putting the cart before the horse, or where do we wanna go with that? Go ahead, Laura.
Is there any shape to that box whatsoever, or are we just saying, build it the way you'd like? Cause I'm probably not build it the way you'd like, I'd probably like to give some direction about the shape.
Yeah, I'd like to define the scope of it so that it's a little bit easier of a task if we're delegating that to someone else, because that way, you know, that seems more manageable to say, all right, this is what information you're looking for feedback from, versus just sitting down and saying, let's talk about transportation.
I stopped to give them
Thank
an
you.
outline, basically make an outline for them
Okay.
to follow, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree, we need some kind of structure and direction, no pun intended.
No, I think we should outline to these people what our current transportation policies are.
Yeah, I mean, that would,
You know,
I think
I
that
don't
would be
think I
made
even
available.
am aware of all of the Dover transportation policies
Yeah.
at this point in time.
That's right.
Hang on one sec. Did you wanna have Bill say something?
I was gonna ask Bill
Okay.
if he has any other districts that have built boxes for learning communities around transportation yet.
No.
We're a few steps ahead of West River,
Of course.
but just because we're smaller. But West River has a lot of infrastructure built that we don't,
Yeah.
because they've already kind of worked together anyways, because their contract is the same in the high school, in the elementary schools, so there's some big differences. We're not gonna be able to compare ourselves with everything to what they're doing. We're gonna have to venture out on some things on our own, and even in policies and just all, there's all different things. They have more requirements than we do because of running the high school and having the middle school. So it's gonna be, we aren't gonna be able to say what are they doing or steal from them. And I'm not, transportation, again, and the school building is, you and you know, were really hot topics during the study committee. So that's why I wanna try to get as much input. And I think that's something that we said we would have, we would adopt a policy on that, you know, well before school, the first year that we operate a school, so people know. And I think those are, I mean, I don't know how you feel, but I know Dwight and I have just talked at different times during the study committee, and those were gonna be probably the two hardest things we'll deal with.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, no, you just,
so, I mean, for me, I think it's important for us to give some direction about who should be that learning community. So for instance, we will get one result if we have a learning community that is made up, comprised of only parents. And we will have a different result if we have a learning community that is comprised of no parents. You know, we should probably set some sort of parameters for what we would like to see achieved. You know, if we're gonna be setting financial, you know, like if we were to say, you know, this board envisions making financial parameters, and we'd like you to tell us how to best allocate resources, or instead, you know, we would like you to tell us how to, you know, determine how much money we'll need if we're envisioning, you know, like people coming and telling us what they want so that we can just figure out how much we're gonna have to spend, you know, I mean, am I over?
you keep looking at portfolio.
No.
I don't think the finances have much to do with it.
Go ahead, boss.
I think you guys should spend some time on defining what it is you wanna know.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem defining what we wanna know, but I think when we build a box, then we're basically saying to people, hey, look, we want your help, we want your opinion, we want your thoughts, as long as they fit in our box.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a new school district, this is something that we get to start with. So why do we, back in the old days, when we were talking about making Dover grade, it was think outside the box. So the two most important things that we felt we needed, we've now started right off saying, yep, here's your box, guys. It's either money or and you know, the most important thing for this district is to really allow students to have enhanced learning, is we have to enhance the transportation inside our group and outside our group, because we both have school choice at 7 through 12, and how the buildings are utilized are two very important decisions. And I don't know if we wanna constrict people to a box.
If we go out with sky's the limit, tell us what your dream transportation system is. Is that what you're suggesting?
Why not? We have to start somewhere.
Let me start listing the ways.
Huh?
I mean, would we do door-to-door service? What if
Maybe-
door-to-door
maybe-
service comes back?
And maybe door-to-door to secondary school too, and it starts there. Doesn't mean that's what's gonna get approved. But I don't know, and I'm just throwing that out there because I think if we start constricting, remember, you're the one that always would say, don't think inside the box.
Yeah.
But
I'm not so much worried about, you know, this magical transportation system is maybe we're kind of sending these guys to the wolves, because there are a lot of important questions that need to be answered in terms of where they're going, what schools they're gonna be going to, what the you know, going between schools and those things. So we're kind of, seems to me like you're asking this learning group to come up with those answers kind of for us. If that's the goal, is for them to come up, tell us what we should be doing, then fine. But if we need to tell them, this is, you know, we wanna know, these are kind of the areas we wanna go into, then do it that way. But if we're asking them, we're kind of sending them to the wolves, they're gonna you're asking them to make some very difficult recommendations to us.
I mean, is this something that we can use Anita for, sending out, whether it's some type of survey about this issue, to get some feedback from the community, to give us some parameters. I just feel that there should be some parameters, otherwise we're gonna have a group sitting there saying, okay, so how do we look
Don't
at
have
this
it.
issue?
Yeah, I see, I'm
Well,
not
the same
thinking,
problems
And
as
that'd be
us.
very
I'm not
productive.
thinking as parameters, I'm more like saying that, hey, look, there's a building in Wardsboro, there's a building in Dover, here's where they're located, here's where the students go to the secondary school from these two towns. And, you know, how are we gonna, what are we gonna do for transportation? How are we gonna do that? Is there gonna be a bus that runs between the two schools during the day? Does that make sense? I mean, I think it's all part of kind of the big picture, and I don't think it's, again, it's our job to rein whatever comes in, but I think it's important to let people really, you know, not be restricted to a box by saying, okay, here's transportation, we're gonna give you $100,000 and there's one bus. And you gotta make, I mean, I don't think putting it in a box, I think maybe the goal is we have to decide how we're gonna do with transportation in this new district. Here's what this new district is, and what is important to people.
But doesn't transportation, you're also talking about not only for the students secondary, for each town, but you're also talking about if,
you, thanks.
say we wanna send our kids to Wardsboro, are we entitled to get a service over to Wardsboro? Isn't that
Right, that's
another
what I'm saying,
area
is
in
do we need to
transportation?
run a bus between buildings?
Right.
Does it need to run different times of day? You know, do we wanna see that,
So
Yeah.
it's two layers of.
well, I think, I don't wanna, I just wanna see what, if people could just run wild and draw their perfect transportation system, what would it be? And then we would have to look at that, and we'd have to figure in constraints or recommendations from administration and the educational staff on what they wanna see, and we're gonna have to try to put something together. I just thought it'd be good to start people thinking on it. Yeah. Laura?
No.
No?
No,
Oh.
no, I mean, no, I'm not really mad at you, I just,
What if we gave them options?
well, I
Here's
just,
door-to-door service, and here's, since transportation is not required by the state, here's nothing. Okay? And build us an A, B, a C. I mean, we know what A
that's
is,
something,
we know what
right?
B is, we
Yeah.
know what C
Right.
is, we know what F is.
right,
You know, and then we could kind of work around
Yeah.
financial constraints with a few, I
Yeah.
mean, there obviously will be some financial constraints.
Oh,
I
yeah.
would think that door-to-door service might cost us as much as it costs to educate 30 or 40 students.
yeah, me too.
I mean, that's what I'm saying, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
so
Or
obviously.
maybe surprisingly
Or it
cheap.
may be surprisingly cheap, which
Yeah.
might decide that he's gonna, you know.
You know, we're gonna be out of a job in a
But I
couple
like
of
that
years.
idea.
Exactly.
I mean, I like the idea
gonna put a new
of
mover
some
out
sort
together.
of charge, I
Right.
mean.
Yeah, I
just
have a charge, but I don't like the box, I don't like.
Okay, well, when I say box means charge,
Geez, when I used to say box, I would get,
and you will this time.
I know. Dwight, you had your hand.
I think, obviously, the more information we can give this group, the better, and I think someone
Okay.
might have mentioned it. We need to know what students are going where in secondary, how many people are actually interested in going between, they can kind of get some direction that way. Obviously, and I don't know if that's something we should give ahead of time, or ask them to give us that info, where exactly are the kids going, and where do they need to be.
Okay, so why doesn't everybody think about that? Next time, let's have a discussion on some guidelines for if we were to form a study group. And let's shoot for after the holidays to try to get some people together. And that will give them the winter and the summer to, yes.
So I think there's two things that we probably need for this, at least.
Yep.
One is the charge, guidelines,
Well,
questions
that's
that we
what
wanna
we're
answer,
think
that's
about.
one. And then the other is who should be on this committee?
Okay.
Because I think there are people that should be on this committee, for instance, road commissioners, there probably should be some parents, there probably should be some education professional,
Probably
right.
the members of this board too.
Should be some
probably.
community members of large.
yes, right.
Sure.
And could we also add to that the current policies, like Rick was saying,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
And those are really easy to get hold of, you know, and how much we spend budget-wise and what the bus routes are. You're like policies.
I don't know. I think it's great.
Um,
I love the,
Yeah, and the only
I love
reason
the
I was kind of
conversation.
leaving it broad to see what kind of response we got, Because sometimes you open up something to committee and you wanna have two board members, an administrator, and 3 parents, and you get no parents, you know? But you get 6 community members that wanna be on it, so that's why I was wondering if we just put out that we're thinking about forming this committee, just to see what kind of response we got, if we got from people, hey, I think it's a great idea, I'd love to serve, or, and I do agree with you, road commissioners are important.
Yeah.
You guys have a road commissioner, road foreman?
We do have a road foreman.
Does Selectman act as the commissioner?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the selectmen.
And you guys just deal with West River, right,
Correct, yeah, we're much more like the other side.
of that part?
Yeah. We're
And
part
you
of
don't
their,
own
we're
any
part of their
buses or
contract, we
anything?
don't own any buses, no.
Do you know roughly what you spend on transportation?
No, I don't know, I'm sorry,
You
it's
know
been a few
Dwight from
years.
I just got the budget today, you can look it up, that's
Yeah,
right.
I mean, like, you know, this is what we currently combined spend,
Maybe
you know, we'd
also-
like to keep it within, you know,
Right,
not be more than 25% more than that, you know?
But then,
Well, I can't-
yeah,
yeah.
I really, I don't mind what we spend, again, then I think if you say no more than 25%, you're creating a box.
Right, I mean,
It's to come up with your pie in the sky. It
yeah,
would be the perfect transportation system.
right.
What if we have
And then you can be the
people
bad person
that
that
go
make
and,
them.
yeah, exactly.
And you
What
can
if
say,
have
what can we
people
get
that
for
go out and
$500,000
spend months and months
or
and
whatever
months,
it
right,
is.
and they come back and they say, it's beautiful, it's perfect, every kid is served door to door, it's $500,000, and we go,
Exactly.
no.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
You know, I
fine,
mean,
so
that would
which
make
teach,
people mad.
which grades don't you wanna teach anymore?
Right.
Which building?
Right.
But, I mean, you will have people that will be, I mean, if you can come up with a price for all, I mean, I would imagine it would be very, I mean.
I like
I
your
don't even
options idea.
Mhm.
And $500,000 is probably not that far off from what
Yeah.
we spend in transportation. Now, the other thing you guys gotta remember too, is that central office, yeah, if you include
Go
all the
look it up,
special
Dwight,
ed,
Cause it's,
Okay,
it's surprising.
yeah.
How much we spend? Man.
You wanna say it's close to 200.
right, that's what I'm saying, $500,000 is not that far
I'm
off.
saying between the two, I'm sure.
And because, don't forget too, part of our transportation is a reserved contribution to our buses every year. It's the contribution we make to the mover, it's the money we pay West River, it's part of our janitor's salary.
Draft
Like, all of
budget
that
for this
information should
year.
also be available to these
Well,
people,
it will
this
be, Laura,
learning
I
community.
if you didn't say that,
Yeah,
here, we're just saying to a committee, here, go make transportation.
all right.
The other thing
Those
we
are all
all,
parts of the
we all gotta remember is that,
It's easier to find the
the
same.
supervisor union is in charge of transportation, and we do get waivers in Dover and Marlboro, right?
Wyndham.
Wyndham gets a waiver too?
There are no waivers. We subcontract
Okay.
bus service to places like Marlboro.
And one of the things that the SU is gonna be looking at in a agency fee budget coming in 2 weeks and 2 days is a building, grounds, and transportation manager. So there may be some real help coming out of central office after July 1st, if we can find anybody inside the box of the salary confines. You think, you don't have an idea of Wardsboro's transportation? You're always good
I'm
with
looking
numbers.
at it now.
They just sent out the budget today.
I'm looking at it now. We can't find it.
Oh, see, they budgeted nothing this year.
70, so about 160 it looks like.
Yeah.
So 70.
With your special,
70, that's not special ed, that's just the regular.
That's field trips and then
71,
student transportation, there you
71, and then we're secondary, right?
go. 71, 35, 100, 100 grand,
That's just 100.
100 and some odd.
Yeah, so I bet you we're not that far. I bet you it's not that big a jump to go from what we're both spending now up to $500,000, to be honest. Okay, I really ran over, I'm really sorry guys, we're like 20 minutes past. Is there anything else anybody wants to discuss? Yes?
I don't want to discuss it, I just want to suggest it, that you guys have developed a vision. I think it would be valuable for you guys to develop some guiding principles so that when you are making these types of charges and things, there's always the vision to point to and the guiding principles to point to. You should review your articles of agreement to see what the study committee has agreed upon, you know. Yes. It's just, it's gonna be important when you get down the road that it's April and you can say, okay, let's point to this and say, can or can we not, or should we not. I think that it's gonna be important, because you're gonna get down to some really tough choices.
Okay, so for next meeting, give me 2 minutes, folks. We're all good with business in the office now. No, we don't need anything back from Bill or anything on that, correct?
We will provide you a third of the remainder, so you know what you've got.
Okay. We're gonna definitely discuss the VSBA, new, what did they call that?
Work plan.
Work plan. We're gonna adopt the
Sorry,
policies.
I wasn't here, I guess, what is the VSBA
Oh.
work plan?
I went to the school board associations did for the West River group, this essential work of Vermont school boards. So I'm gonna send you the PowerPoint that they did. Some of it, they hadn't started, they didn't have a mission statement, they're still working on their mission statement. So we're a little bit ahead, but some of their things that they did that made sense is you kinda like align up your work and put together a calendar for the next year. And there's a couple good things I think we should review, that I'd like to go over. So I'd like to take like in 45 minutes to an hour to go over that specific to us. I don't think we need to spend the $800 or $900 to spend to have them come down for us, but I thought if we went over and somebody wanted something specific, we can then get that specific section from them and just save ourselves some money.
Somebody we don't have.
Yeah, some money we don't know where it's gonna come from.
Save money, right.
We wanna make sure we wanna form some kind of RFP to suggest, so that we can make a recommendation to the boards on who we wanna use for this reserve study, or whatever that fancy word you used.
Capital, I don't even.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about Andy for the next meeting, because this is the one after.
The CNAP.
And what's there was one other thing we just discussed that I
DRB.
need to have on the agenda, what was it?
Transportation box.
No, there was something we were gonna look at. Help me out, guys.
You were reviewing Andy's stuff.
Yeah, that's in
That's
2
18.
meetings.
2 meetings.
Okay.
The next meeting, we want balance of the money left over, the VSBA work plan, the RFP on the buildings. There was a fourth thing.
We're gonna continue this transportation.
Transportation, nothing with Anita, is there an Anita?
No, transportation and also then the
Do we have a
building.
timeline developed?
No, that's what I wanna do.
That's-
That's part of that
that's-
VSBA work plan.
That
What
will-
is this?
That's making,
That will be a
that's-
timeline for the
right.
next year and a half.
Here's what we should be doing and here's what we need to
Exactly.
do.
Great, and you will help us with that?
There's a nice little model here.
No, that's why I went to that class, other class.
So what's this here that we got early on? Remember this, it kinda gave us a month to month of going forward.
Yeah, we're doing good.
Yeah, we're right ahead, yeah.
No, we really are.
That's from the VSBA too.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, so
Yeah.
we are in pretty good shape.
No, I'm just saying,
that's
this is
yeah, that's
already
what,
kind of a
that's part
guideline
of-
of where we're supposed to be at.
right, that's part of what I wanna do at the next meeting.
Yep.
Yeah, cause a lot of that stuff we've covered. Oh, I know, it was the policies. We wanna adopt all the policies just to get them out of our hair. Remember, we approved all the policies to be posted, we never adopted them, we're gonna do them tonight, but we're running out of time. So if everybody's good, if there's anything else I missed,
Did we ever adopt our mission statement, or
we adopted that,
looked at
didn't we?
it and then came back to
Totally.
it?
I thought we adopted.
We adopted it that first meeting,
Okay.
or did we just approve it for posting?
I thought we approved it for posters.
We'll adopt that at the next meeting
Yeah,
too.
I thought that was still at some.
Policies and mission statement, yes, you're right, because we wanted to
Oh,
make sure that it got discussed in both buildings.
Okay, yeah.
So policies and mission statements, that's the 5 big things for next meeting, then
Great.
we'll have that agenda kind of, and we'll have a guideline. I'm gonna send this to you like in the next day or so, can you just make sure you get it back so Bill can get it out early?
Is Anita gonna have her proposal to us before then? And then
Yeah, she should have that,
Tomorrow.
What?
She said she had it.
She'll probably have it right now.
You're gonna give me that list.
yeah.
Will we
No, that's
vote-
why, this worked good last time with Dwight and I, we would do the agenda before we left, so.
Great.
Will we be voting on that, Anita's next meeting, or we already?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
if she gets it to us, she
Alright.
said she could.
Nope.
What's that?
You didn't go there, did you?
I did, yeah, that's why I was late.
No, hey, and just remember, guys,
Sorry, man.
the first meeting of the month is
You're
in
kidding.
Wardsboro, the second meeting is in Dover.
Oh.
Always.
No, I'll take it.
And I missed the last
So-
meeting, and
Okay.
we were meeting 2 times in a row in Dover when I last
Right.
heard.
Right.
And then the agenda for
Sorry.
tonight said the Dover
Cause
School.
it says it on the
Bill
door.
did it
Right on
wrong.
top of it.
Yeah,
I will
yeah,
not
you're right.
I own that one.
At the
For-
next
Do you?
meeting.
No,
Lauren
for the
helped me
18th.
get it correct.
So would it be helpful
First
if
one in
I
what?
wrote my opinion down and shared it with people about the
The what?
vote, how we vote?
Australian.
Yeah, Australian.
No, because we're not, gonna- oh, that's in 2 weeks.
That's the one I'm not gonna be.
You were gonna discuss it in 2 weeks so that Andy could come back
Well, we were gonna discuss it with Andy on
Yeah.
on the second, 18th of December.
Yeah.
Yeah,
really
I
6
made
weeks
a
from
little
now.
note for myself to do
Okay.
that. Hopefully
so
it'll
let's,
remind me
let's-
to do it.
anything from the public, I'm sorry.
One thing, in regards to the transportation committee, you may wanna think about first deciding what students may or may not be able to go between buildings. I think that, I mean, I'm thinking if I was gonna be on that committee, that would be the first roadblock I'd hit. Is what students, what policy are you gonna have for what students are gonna be able to go between back and forth?
Well, that's a different policy.
But that's,
That's
you
part
need
of
that
trans- I
policy
agree
for
with you.
transportation.
It's part of
That's a big
transportation.
part of transportation.
Right.
So,
But
just a suggestion.
they're gonna
No, I
have to,
agree.
see, unfortunately, it's not a perfect world.
It's a catch-22.
Right, so
Yes.
they're both gonna have to kinda work, because one of the problems with the building usage is, we can't, what if every Dover student said, I wanna be in the Wardsboro building? Ain't no room. Or what if every student in Wardsboro said they wanna be in the Dover building, then why do you have a Wardsboro building? So it's, that was part of the discussions, and I know you were for some of those meetings during the
Oh, yeah.
committee. You know, that was gonna, that and the transportation were gonna be the 2 biggest kind of barn burners.
I think that's a real hard one.
Yeah,
It is.
Right.
Yeah.
and I don't know, you know, and that's why we wanted, that one is something I think we discussed last meeting, that, you know, that's definitely not something the board just wants us, you know, come down from the mountain, hand the stone tablet and say, hear ye, everybody will go on the white bus.
So,
I was gonna say, then you might wanna charge this committee with almost coming up with 2 options. You know, what if we can have 10 students going back and forth between the buildings, or what if we can have 20?
Well,
I mean,
well,
give them
It's
some.
more than that, it's also, is there gonna be inter-building
Right.
opportunities? His child goes here, my child goes there, but is there gonna be ability for what?
my phone is telling me it's time to go to bed.
You know, but
I
is
understand that's
during the
exactly why
day,
it's so hard to
is
do
like
transportation.
with the second grades get together in the 2 buildings back and forth, is it gonna be more cost effective for kids in the language arts program for Spanish, instead of having a Spanish teacher come here, would it make sense for some kids to come from here and go there for Spanish, and then when they come back, bring some kids over for a math program that they're doing here that a lot of kids wanna be involved in, you know, how do we utilize the resources we have? You know, because that's how we get increased opportunity for students. And again, like Bill said, that was the big policy,
Yeah,
was, you
so
know,
how is he gonna, I mean, like,
That's the point,
maybe we need to have them, I mean, maybe there's gotta be a dialogue, you know, like, okay, people, tell us the first questions that you have, you know, for us, in order for you to develop some sort of policy, you
Right,
know, I
that's
mean,
The committee needs, it
Or
needs
recommendation.
some place to start.
right, but again, I think it's just kind of like, here's some lines, you know, that there's so many kids in the buildings and this is, but I don't think it's a box that says, you know, you can, you know, come up with your best transportation under $150,000.
Oh, no, I wasn't suggesting that. I think the going back and forth, whether it's for a particular program or for an entire day, week, month, or year, I think that's, to me, that's kind of the A before the A, B, you know, it's just kind of,
Well, the bigger question's gonna come up in our next meeting is, are we combining 2 schools or are we creating a new school system?
isn't that already answered in the agreement?
Well, I guess not.
What?
So, Well, to me, a new school system starts off with assumption that you're starting with a brand new school system, and there's nothing beholden. But if you are negotiating a contract with the same group there, and are you keeping all the staff, and do they just have a new title? If they don't work for the Wardsboro School anymore, they work for or do we get to hire all new staff, or do we have our superintendent hires a principal for this River Valley school, and did that person then tell us what their staffing is and then go out and hire their staff? I mean, I don't know, that's, one of the questions, and,
That's for another day.
yeah.
It's been a very long night.
That's for another long night.
So motion to adjourn?
Wardsboro boys,
Yes,
you are
Hang
in
on.
charge.
Yes.
All right,
Go
I
ahead.
forgot about that.
Motion to adjourn,
yes.
Keep-
Are these Dover cookies?
first and second, those are your
I think they're
cookies.
Wardsboro.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, we're
Wardsboro
good.
boys.
Yeah.
Lights off.